My husband's words hit me like ice water as I stood there in my evening gown, clutching the Crystal Excellence Award for Marketing Innovation. The ballroom around us buzzed with congratulations and champagne toasts, but all I could hear was the venom in David's voice. "What did you say?" I whispered. He smiled that cold smile I'd been seeing more often lately. "You heard me. My name is Jessica Chen Rodriguez, and I thought I had it all figured out. 15 years climbing the corporate ladder at Morrison & Associates, a beautiful home in Westchester, a marriage that looked perfect from the outside." I was wrong about everything. The award ceremony had been magical, standing on that stage, accepting recognition for the campaign that boosted our biggest client's sales by 47%. The applause washing over me like warm sunlight, my team cheering from their table. David had been silent the entire drive home. Now, in our marble-floored foyer, he was finally talking, and every word was poison. "You want to know the truth, Jess?" He loosened his black tie with deliberate slowness. "I've been carrying you for years, covering for your mistakes, making you look good to the partners." My hands shook as I set down my purse. "That's not true." "Isn't it?" He pulled out his phone. "Want to see the emails?" The screen glowed between us like a weapon. Email after email. David's name on strategies I'd presented. David's signature on reports I'd written. David's fingerprints all over my career. My legs gave out. I sank onto our Italian leather couch, the same couch we'd picked out together 3 years ago. Back when I still believed in us. "Why?" The word came out broken. "Because you were never good enough on your own." He poured himself a scotch from the crystal decanter. His wedding ring caught the light. "And because I knew you'd never leave me if you thought you needed me." The room spun. 15 years of marriage, 10 years of therapy together, 5 years of trying for a baby, all of it built on lies. "I want a divorce." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. David laughed. Actually laughed. "With what money? With what reputation? Jess, honey, I own you. Your career, your contacts, your credibility, it's all mine." He was right, and we both knew it. David was a senior partner at the firm. I was just a marketing director. He had connections going back decades. I had talent and a work ethic. Talent doesn't win against power, not usually. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while David snored beside me. The award sat on my nightstand, its crystal surface reflecting the moonlight. It should have been the best night of my life. Instead, it was the night my world ended. Morning came too soon. I dragged myself to the office, hoping work might provide some escape. The congratulations felt hollow now. Every handshake, every pat on the back, every "you deserve this" felt like another lie. My assistant, Kelly, brought me coffee and a stack of messages. "The Chronicle wants to interview you about the award," she said brightly, "and Morrison wants to see you at 10. James Morrison, the founding partner, David's mentor and golf buddy. I knew this wasn't going to be good. Morrison's office occupied the entire corner of the 32nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the Hudson River. Persian rugs covered hardwood floors. Success decorated every surface. "Jessica, congratulations again." Morrison didn't get up from his mahogany desk. "Quite an achievement." "Thank you, sir. Sit down. We need to talk." I perched on the edge of the leather chair facing his desk. My stomach churned. "There's been some concern raised about your recent work." Morrison steepled his fingers. "Questions about attribution, collaboration, team dynamics." The words hit me like physical blows. David hadn't wasted any time. "I don't understand." David brought some irregularities to my attention. Email chains that suggest perhaps the award-winning campaign wasn't entirely your own work. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Morrison held up a hand. "I'm not making accusations, but perception matters in this business. We need to be careful about how we present achievements, how we credit collaboration. Translation: David was throwing me under the bus, and Morrison was driving. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe you should consider sharing credit for the campaign. Publicly. Show that you're a team player. My fingernails dug into my palms. And if I don't? Morrison's smile was razor thin. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I walked out of his office feeling like I was drowning. The hallway stretched endlessly in both directions. Colleagues passed by, their congratulations from yesterday replaced by careful nods and averted eyes. Word travels fast in corporate environments, especially when it's poisonous. Back in my office, I closed the door and tried to think. David had moved quickly, but he'd also made a mistake. He was so confident in his power that he'd gotten sloppy. Those emails he'd shown me, the ones with his name on my work, they had timestamps, metadata, digital fingerprints that could tell a story if someone knew how to read them. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. Rodriguez Investigations, this is Tony. Tony, it's your sister. Jess? What's wrong? You sound terrible. Tony had always been able to read me, even over the phone. 3 years older, protective to a fault, and now a private investigator specializing in corporate fraud. I need help, and I need you to keep this between us. We met that evening at a diner in Queens, far from my usual Manhattan haunts. Tony looked older than his 42 years, gray threading through his dark hair, but his eyes were sharp as ever. Tell me everything, he said. I did. The award, David's confession, Morrison's threat, the emails and the implications. Tony listened without interruption, occasionally taking notes on a worn leather pad. Son of a bitch, he said when I finished. 15 years of this? I think so. Maybe longer. I don't know what's real anymore. Tony reached across the table and squeezed my hand. We're going to figure this out, but I need you to be smart about this. Don't confront him. Don't change your behavior. Act normal while I dig. What if he's right? What if I can't prove anything? Then we make sure he goes down anyway. Tony's smile was grim. Trust me, sis. Guys like David always have more than one skeleton in their closet. The next few days passed in a surreal haze. I went through the motions at work, attending meetings and reviewing campaigns, while my marriage imploded in slow motion. David acted like nothing had changed, chatting about weekend plans and restaurant reservations. The cognitive dissonance was maddening. Meanwhile, Tony worked his magic. He had contacts in IT, people who understood digital forensics. Within 72 hours, he had preliminary findings. The emails are definitely backdated, he told me over a secure phone call. Crude job, too. Whoever did this doesn't understand metadata preservation. So I can prove they're fake? Better than that. I can prove when they were created. Want to guess? My heart hammered. When? 2 days after your award ceremony. David made them all in one sitting, probably thought he was being clever. Relief flooded through me so intensely I almost cried, but Tony wasn't finished. There's more. I pulled some financial records. Your husband's been busy. 3 separate affairs over the past 5 years, all with junior associates at the firm. He's been paying for hotel rooms, jewelry, vacations, all charged to company credit cards and buried in fake expense reports. The room tilted. Affairs, plural. While I'd been trying to get pregnant, going through fertility treatments, blaming myself for our problems. There's more. I don't know if I can handle more. You need to hear this. He's been embezzling, small amounts, spread across multiple accounts, but it adds up. We're talking about $200,000 over 3 years. I sat down hard on my kitchen floor. The cool tiles pressed against my legs through my skirt. David wasn't just a liar and a cheat. He was a criminal. What do I do? We build a case, document everything, then we decide how to play it. That weekend, David announced he was going golfing with Morrison. A client meeting, he said. Very important. I knew it was another lie, but I smiled and kissed his cheek goodbye. Have fun, honey. The moment his car disappeared down our street, I got to work. Tony had given me a list: financial documents, computer files, personal papers, anything that might support our case. I photographed everything with a high-resolution camera, uploaded the files to a secure cloud server, and put everything back exactly where I'd found it. In David's home office, I hit the jackpot. A folder labeled Insurance contained bank statements from accounts I'd never seen, deposits and withdrawals that painted a clear picture of financial manipulation. But the real prize was his laptop. David was old school about security, which meant he was terrible at it. His password was our wedding date. I was into his email account in 30 seconds. What I found there made me physically sick. Email chains with Morrison about the Jessica problem, discussions about how to manage her expectations and redirect the narrative, plans to gradually marginalize me until I quit or could be fired for cause. But worse were the personal emails, messages to 3 different women, all employees at our firm, explicit photos, hotel confirmations, restaurant reservations charged to company accounts. One email thread made me see red. She actually thinks she earned that award, David had written to someone named Amanda from HR. It's almost sad how delusional she's become. Don't worry, baby, once we get rid of her, nothing will stand in our way. Amanda's response was equally charming. I can't wait to redecorate her office. That view is wasted on someone so mediocre. I screenshot everything. Every email, every photo, every receipt. Tony had taught me to be thorough. By Sunday night, I had enough evidence to destroy David's career and possibly send him to prison. The question was how to use it. Monday morning brought a new humiliation. I arrived at the office to find my award missing from my desk. Kelly looked embarrassed when I asked about it. Morrison's assistant came by early, she said quietly. Said there was some kind of mistake with the engraving. They needed to fix it. We both knew they weren't fixing anything. An hour later, I got an email from HR, a meeting with Morrison and the ethics committee. This afternoon. Please bring union representation if desired. They were moving fast now. David must have convinced Morrison that I was becoming a problem. I had 2 choices. I could walk into that meeting defensively, try to salvage my reputation and maybe keep my job, or I could go nuclear. I chose nuclear. But first, I needed insurance. I spent my lunch break at a law office in Midtown. Sarah Chen, employment attorney, came highly recommended by Tony. She was younger than I'd expected, probably mid-30s, with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. This is extensive, she said, reviewing the evidence on her tablet. Fraud, embezzlement, sexual harassment, retaliation. Your husband's facing potential federal charges. What about Morrison? He's complicit in the retaliation. Harder to prove, but possible, especially if we can establish a pattern of protecting David while targeting you. What do you recommend? Sarah leaned back in her chair. Normally, I'd suggest negotiating. Severance, references, non-disclosure agreements. But this is different. They've committed crimes, multiple felonies. So we don't negotiate with criminals. We destroy them. The ethics committee meeting was scheduled for 3 o'clock in Morrison's conference room. I arrived 5 minutes early, carrying a leather portfolio and wearing my best suit. If I was going down, I'd do it with dignity. Morrison sat at the head of the polished table. David was there, of course, along with Amanda from HR and 2 other partners I recognized but didn't know well. They looked like a tribunal. Jessica, thank you for coming. Morrison's voice was artificially warm. This is just a routine discussion about some concerns that have been raised. What kind of concerns? Attribution issues with your recent campaign work, questions about collaboration and individual contribution versus team effort. David spoke up. No one's questioning your talent, Jess, but in a collaborative environment, it's important that credit is shared appropriately. I looked at my husband across the polished table. He seemed so confident, so sure of his position. It was almost sad. I see. And what exactly are you proposing? Morrison slid a document across the table. A joint statement clarifying the collaborative nature of the award-winning campaign, shared credit with the team members who contributed. I pretended to read the statement. It was masterfully written, making me sound like a credit-stealing prima donna, while positioning David as the magnanimous team player willing to share recognition. This is interesting, I said finally. Very creative writing. We think it's fair, Amanda said, and it protects everyone's interests. Everyone's interests. I repeated the phrase slowly. That's funny, because I've been thinking about everyone's interests too. I opened my portfolio and pulled out a thick folder. David, do you recognize these? I slid printouts of the backdated emails across the table. David's face went white. These are the emails you showed me last week, the ones proving you did all my work. Fascinating metadata, don't you think? Morrison frowned. I don't understand. These emails were created 2 days after my award ceremony. Every single one. David made them up to discredit me. The room went dead silent. But wait, there's more. I pulled out bank statements. David's been embezzling company funds, $200,000 over 3 years, hotel rooms, jewelry, vacations, all for his girlfriends. Amanda's face had gone gray. She was one of the girlfriends. And speaking of girlfriends, I placed printed emails on the table. David's been having affairs with multiple employees, using company resources, creating a hostile work environment. Morrison reached for the papers with shaking hands. This can't be right. Oh, it gets better. James, did you know David's been forwarding confidential client information to his personal email? That's a violation of about 6 different federal regulations. David finally found his voice. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I can. Digital forensics are amazing these days. Every email, every transaction, every file access is recorded somewhere. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. So here's what's going to happen. David is going to resign immediately. He's going to make full restitution for the embezzled funds, and he's going to publicly apologize for attempting to discredit me. You can't make those demands, Morrison sputtered. I'm not making demands. I'm offering you a choice. Handle this internally and quietly, or watch me take it to the FBI, the state attorney general, and every business journalist in the city. The silence stretched for a full minute. Finally, Morrison spoke. What do you want? I want my award back. I want a public acknowledgement that the campaign was my work. I want David gone, and I want Amanda transferred to a different department. And if we agree to this, then this stays between us. David gets to slink away quietly instead of being perp-walked out in handcuffs. David was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. Jess, we can work this out. We're married. We're a team. We were never a team, David. I was your victim. I gathered my papers and headed for the door. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, I go public with everything. That evening, I sat in my empty house with a glass of wine and my restored award. David had packed a bag and left for his brother's place. The silence was deafening, but it was clean silence. Honest silence. My phone buzzed. A text from Tony. Saw the news. Morrison issued a statement an hour ago. David's resignation effective immediately. Full credit restored to you for the campaign. You did it, sis. I did do it. After 15 years of being undermined and manipulated, I'd finally fought back. And won. The divorce papers were filed the next week. David didn't contest anything. He couldn't afford to. Sarah Chen made sure the settlement was generous, and David signed everything without argument. 6 months later, I was promoted to Senior Director of Marketing. My first major decision was implementing new policies around collaboration, attribution, and workplace harassment. I named them the Transparency Protocols. Some of my colleagues thought the name was pretentious. I thought it was perfect. A year after my award ceremony, I stood on another stage accepting another honor, this time for innovative leadership in corporate ethics. The ballroom was full of colleagues and competitors, all applauding my work. But the person I was most proud to see was sitting in the front row, Tony, beaming like the proud big brother he'd always been. After the ceremony, he found me at the bar. "So, how does it feel?" he asked. "Really winning this time?" I thought about it. The past year had been hard. Divorce, rebuilding my reputation, learning to trust my own judgment again. But I'd survived. More than survived. "It feels like justice," I said. "Good, because you deserve it. You always did." I looked around the ballroom, at all the successful people networking and celebrating. A year ago, I would have felt intimidated, like I didn't belong. Now I knew better. I'd earned my place here, not through manipulation or politics or riding someone else's coattails, through talent, hard work, and the courage to fight for what was right. David had been wrong about everything. I was good enough on my own. I always had been. I just needed to believe it. The Crystal Award sat on my mantelpiece at home, catching the morning light through my new apartment's windows. It represented more than professional achievement now. It was a reminder that sometimes the perfect life you think you want isn't worth having if it's built on lies. And sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you turns out to be the best thing that ever happened. My marriage had imploded after I won that award, but losing David wasn't the tragedy I'd thought it would be. It was my liberation.